tank one is very, very boring. You just let the engine sit. So we've got 4 more tanks to go. So I'm just going to refill the tank. And tank 2 is slow driving in figure of 8 circles. Tank 3 is a little bit faster driving in figure of 8 circles. Tank 4 is in a straight line, reaching sort of half throttle to 3/4 throttle. And finally tank number 5 is reaching full throttle, then just coasting the engine. Throughout the whole process, it's really, really important that you keep the engine running rich. To richen it, I'm not going to touch the low speed needles, no need to touch that one, I'm not going to touch that at all. That is a territory we do not need to go into at the moment, so I'm only adjusting the high speed needle, just keeping it running a little bit on the richer side, just for like increased lubrication throughout the braking in procedure. So I'm just going to start up the engine, and then we're going to keep it running rich, as I just said, and we're going to drive it in very, very slow figure of 8 circles. I'm going to be constantly just checking the engine temperature just by putting my hand on the top. If it's so hot that you're going to burn yourself immediately, then it's running too hot. You should be able to sort of just touch it, you know, you shouldn't by any means get any burns from it straight away. If you are, then it's running too hot. What some people like to do, because it is a new engine, they advise that you actually do half a tank and then let it cool off a little bit. I've never had any issues really with just doing a full tank at a time, and I find the tank does go quite quickly. If it keeps cutting out, that's fine. It is a new engine, it's going to be running a little bit inconsistently, so that's perfectly normal. I'm not going to drive it too far away, I'm just going to start it up and we'll see how it goes. So you can see how rich it's actually running because of all that blue exhaust smoke. We're just going to go in figure of 8 circles. And we're going to do this for the whole of tank number 2. Tank 2, as I just said, slow driving in figure of 8 circles, running very, very rich. Once in between the tanks, I'm just going to give the engine a little bit of time to cool down. As I say, during the tanks, keep checking the temperature just by placing your hand on the engine heatsink. Obviously, if you do have a temperature gun, that's even better. That's going to be very handy. We don't have one of those on us at the moment. It needs a new battery installed in it. So after each tank, obviously, just refill the tank. Once again, do not fill it all of the way. Leave a little bit of a gap at the top. Make sure the lid's securely down into there. Now I'm going to restart the engine, and tank 3 is slightly faster driving in figure of 8 circles. Before we're probably using about 1/4 throttle. This one could be using no more than half throttle consistently, and then on the corners just coasting around the corner. So let's restart it. A little bit faster driving in figure of 8 circles. You see the engine's running very, very rich. You can tell that because of the blue exhaust smoke that's coming out. Tank number 1, just sitting. Tank number 2, slow driving in figure of 8. We've done tank number 3, half throttle in figure of 8. Now it gets a little bit more exciting. So in between the tanks, I've given the engine a few minutes just to cool off a little bit. Going to refill the tank once again, and now we're moving on to tank number 4. In this tank we can start to reach about half to maybe 3/4 throttle in a straight line. So I'm just going to go in a straight line, and then at the end of the straight line I'm just going to coast it around the corner and come back. So let's start it back up again, and let's do tank number 4 of the braking in procedure. Okay, so still running very, very rich. We're just doing straight lines. And that's about 3/4 throttle, half to 3/4 throttle. Getting to the end of the line. I'm not braking, I'm just cruising around the corner. You can see all the blue exhaust smoke where it's running nice and rich. And that's what we want. We want that to lubricate this new engine. And do that for the whole of tank number 5. This is where things get really exciting. So we've done 4 tanks now and we're on to the final stage of the breaking in procedure. The engine is still running rich, and once again I've let it have a quick cool down before we've started this tank. I'm just going to refill the tank. Once again, I'm not going to fill it up the whole way. Now this tank, tank number 5, we're going to be reaching full throttle. We're going to be slowly accelerating up to full throttle, holding it at full throttle just for a second, and then just letting the engine coast round the corner. So it's another straight line exercise. You need a little bit of an area for this obviously, because we are going to be reaching some higher speeds. Just reaching up to full throttle, easing off the throttle, and then just letting it coast around the corner. Now here's a point to remember. You may need to, if you have a look here, because we've been running the engine really rich, you may actually need to lean out the high-speed needle just a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean just a tiny bit at a time. We will cover full tuning tutorials in the next video, so that's the next one we're going to be doing shortly, how to tune the engine. But because it's running very rich, you may find that when you reach full throttle it might just cut out, and that's because it's too rich. It's going to flood the engine, so you might need to, just for the purpose of breaking it in, you might need to lean it out a little bit just so you can actually get this tank done, otherwise it may just keep cutting out. Okay, so I'm just going to restart it and we'll do tank number 5. Okay, so straight line, just reaching full throttle and then just coasting it round the corner. As soon as I get to full throttle, I'm easing off. I'm not holding it at full throttle, just easing it off. And just coasting it around the corner. You've got to do this for the whole of the final tank.